God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. What makes a great leader and a great communicator? It's that. It's showing that you care, asking questions, being authentic as to who you are, setting proper expectations, and checking on your people and training consistently. Who's paying the bill for us going too fast? Like, who's sacrificing because we're unwilling to slow down?
Yeah.
Right. I also believe that, how you show up here is how you show up everywhere. So if you go really fast with your employees and in your business, you probably also go that fast in your personal life. One company right now, they have around 100 employees, and there's really about 2 leaders. And it's a mess. I learn from you every day, and you're a great friend, and I'm grateful for our friendship. And thank you for making the people around us look better at the very least. So I appreciate you.
Welcome to Thread Talks, where we stitch together tales of style and substance. Join us as we chat with industry icons, master tailors, innovators, and business experts. We'll discuss how to look and feel your best. Explore how fashion shapes our lives, the artistry behind custom clothing, and the deep stories woven into the fabric of our identities. Here's your host, Peter Roberti of Adrian Jules.
Okay, super excited about our guest today, Jeremy Herrman, founder and CEO of ClarityNOW, and also a business coach of super successful guys in the community and around the country. So, Jeremy, thank you for being a part of the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I before we jump into it, I wanted to, we've been, close friends forever, and I want to dive into how you came up with, ClarityNOW. Like, where did the name come from? Because I feel like, it's got something to do with vision, but I'm just curious around where you came up with that name and why you came up with it.
Well, to be honest, Pete, my wife gets all the credit for the name. She named the company.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. That's not me. Someone much smarter than myself actually came up with it. It really stemmed because my background is primarily in real estate, and I've been a real estate coach for the last 5+ years. And I believe most things in business come down to numbers. Almost everything can be some form of a math equation on how to run a business. Now, communication would be an offset of that. But most things really come down to numbers. And I find that a lot of business owners and realtors are no different. They just really struggle with the numbers. They may be great at the tasks of doing the job and the skill sets of what they do. Like, for example, you could be a great plumber, but the business owner side, sometimes they lack. So when I became a coach, I created this big giant spreadsheet that I called the Circle of Financial Clarity. Terrible name. And I went from business planning to tracking to conversion reports and pipelines and profit and loss and CEO summary reports and so forth. And It was great. And I got lucky that my good friend and my co-founder turned my spreadsheet into software. And that's what we do today is we have software for realtors to help them become better business owners. And my wife named it ClarityNOW. I was thinking I wanted to use the word clarity, and it needed to be shorter. And most people lack it. And I think it's a challenge in business as we sometimes lack clarity. So it's she did a good job in naming it.
Yeah, I think it's so simple, but it makes so much sense, right? I mean, it's just easy. It just makes sense.
Thank you.
Yeah. You touched on a little bit about what we're going to talk about today is communication. And I think that it's so important. And I think it's something that we've talked about. And I think you do it so well, especially, in ClarityNOW and also the people that you coach. I'm curious, I want to dive into a couple things that have just happened with us recently that I want to pick your brain on. But before we do that, what does communication mean to you? Like, especially with all the business, business owners that you work with, like, what does it mean to you?
It's a great question. It's a big question too. I mean, I think frankly, clarity is a big part of it, right? So communicating clearly, making sure that at the end of a conversation, primarily the important ones, that there's a clear next steps and how both parties are supposed to perform or what's supposed to happen next. And again, I think a lot of people struggle with that. And really with communication, I mean, listen, almost every business boils down to relationships, right? So communication is also so much about just presenting things in a proper way, but more importantly, being authentically and caring about people. So sometimes the worst communicators are also ones that just don't care about their employees. And that's a challenge, right? So when I first got into selling real estate almost 20 years ago, my mentor at the time, he told me that God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. So talk less, listen more. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, is they're not great at asking questions. People are great at making statements. They don't really practice asking questions, and they don't listen. And if we're not asking questions and we're not listening, then it's hard to prove that we care about somebody.
Yeah.
Right. And with communication too, I mean, a lot of people, there's another concept I think about a lot and coach to a lot, is that people don't care how much you know until they know how much that you care. Right? They don't care how much you know until they know how much that you care. So being able to communicate clearly, show that you care, be authentic with your people, that's all part of being a good communicator.
So I just want to back up 2 steps here. Do you feel like it's something you can learn, like asking questions? You said, asking the right questions, is that something that's, you think it could be coached, like just from the people that, the business owners that you coach? You feel like that's something that, they've developed, or how would one even develop that?
That's a great question. Yeah, 100% yes. When I first became a coach, one of the things that I would do every single week for probably a couple years straight is every single week I would write 50 open-ended questions that I could ask them every single week. So over the course of 1 year, that's 2,500 questions. I bet you I've written out maybe close to 10,000 questions in my career. So it's 100% a skill set.
I've never heard that before. That's pretty cool.
It's practice, right? You got to kick a field goal and become a professional field goal kicker. You got to practice measuring to be a good tailor, right? You got to ask great questions to be a great coach. So asking questions is a huge part of what you do as a leader and as a coach. So to answer your question, yes, 100% can learn it, but you got to practice, and you got to practice by asking questions. Think about what statement that you're making or that you want to make can you turn into a question. So instead of making the statement, how can I make this a question instead? That's a great way to think about it too.
So what I'm just curious, could you give me an example? Like if you just break that down, just so okay. Or actually, you know what? Let's actually, yeah, if you could give me an example, I'm just curious, because then I want to go into like how you might, I want to give you a live example that I'm currently dealing with, and I want to pick your brain on that too.
Yeah. So let's say this. Let's say here's an example. So you asked me, hey, Jeremy, what makes a good communicator? Now, obviously, we're doing a podcast, right? That's not a conversation. So this is going to be a different type of dialogue. But instead of saying, well, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 makes a great communicator, one thing I may ask is, well, why are you asking about being better at communication? Ooh. What do you think makes a good communicator? Where do you think you're lacking at how you communicate? Who do you admire? And what is it about that their communication that you admire? Oftentimes those things are the things that you actually want to develop and become. So by asking those questions, you have the answers within you, right? So it's that there's a perfect example.
Yeah, I like that. And then I feel like, and it's almost like the other end of it. Like I'm figuring out for myself on why I'm asking you those questions by you asking the question. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I like that a lot. Nice.
It takes time. It really does. There's plenty of times, and even still today, I'll go to make a statement. I'll be halfway through the statement, and I'll literally stop and say, hold on. I'll say out loud, hold on, let me turn this into a question. And then I ask so you don't need to have like a perfect, dialogue. So practice.
Yeah. And I almost think that doing that almost builds the trust even more by saying, hey, like it doesn't have to be perfect. Like that's part of the beauty of it. You're having a conversation.
Yep. 100%.
So let me ask you, obviously you coach and you train a bunch of, different business owners. What do you see that some of the things that they do well, like communicating to their team, like what areas, like would you tell either, myself or other business owners like that, that some of the other business owners that you coach have done very well? And what things do you see that they've had to improve upon, or that there always constantly is a challenge? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah. So again, big question, right? If we're talking specifically in business, in the people that do well, I think the people that do well are oftentimes also correlated to having a successful business, right? So it's not who's a good communicator but has a bad business. That's not who we're talking about. It's who's a good communicator and the result is also ideal, right? The result is also a good business. So if we think of it that way, I think a lot of communication and having a successful business, it really comes down to, especially with leadership, like leading other people, it comes down to setting proper expectations up front. And that's where, again, I think a lot of people struggle.
Expectations.
You said, ooh, that hit you. What was it about?
Like expectations, I just feel like are so hard. Sometimes I feel like they're very hard to sometimes communicate. And I feel like you could be communicating, if you're communicating that one way and, this individual, just interprets just differently, or he or she just communicates one way. Like, you could be saying something and it's just, you just are on different wavelengths. You're just not communicating. Like, how do you navigate something like that?
Well, can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
Sure. Do you give me permission for you to be coachable for a second?
Sure. Yeah. Go.
So in the moments where you struggle with communicating with people, you said different wavelengths, and I don't know how to make the point. Is it that you don't know how to communicate, or that you didn't slow down enough to think about how do I need to communicate to this person so therefore they actually hear it? Is it you going too fast, and that's why that result was that way?
Yeah, I would. Yes, definitely. I mean, I know, like, I acknowledge that I sometimes communicate too fast. Like I'm going I'm going too fast and I'm not slowing down enough, and it's not registering. Or even if they're, sometimes it's I'm having a conversation that's more of a kind of a practical conversation, trying to get a couple, checking a few things off the list, and they might be in a different state of mind, and they're just, we're not on the same wavelength. And part of it is that you got to slow down, make sure they connect with them.
You got to slow down
before you can even, right?
Whose responsibility is it to make sure that you're on the same page by the time the conversation's over? Is that their responsibility or yours?
Oh, it's mine. Yeah, mine. 100%.
It's yours.
Yeah.
So are we slowing down enough to have them repeat back to me what the expectations are, or what we just communicated, to make sure that we're on the same page? Or are we just vomiting all over them verbally, leaving and assuming they got it?
You're right. I know you're right.
Most of what I do as a coach, Pete, is to slow people down.
Yeah.
Because us entrepreneurs, we want to go fast. Like, we have so many ideas, we're on to the next thing. And what you say no to is more important than what you say yes to, more times than not. Right? So slowing an entrepreneur down is usually what is the actual challenge in coaching business leaders.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like that. Oh, that's good. That's good. I like it. No, and I think that, like you said, just even if you just slow down just just dial it back just a little bit, will help so much with communication. Yeah.
So going back to the expectations thing.
Yeah, go.
There's an example I like to give on this, where let's say that you and your lovely, beautiful wife, Joelle, you guys go out to dinner.
Okay.
And you guys go to the hostess, and the hostess says, I got a table for you right now. Mm-hmm. Right. And you're like, sweet, you guys sit down.
Let's do it.
And then it's 1 hour before someone comes up and, asks you what you want to drink or takes your order. How do you feel?
What the heck? What's going on here?
There's a chance you're not even there anymore, right? You're not happy.
Yeah.
Okay. You and Joelle, same restaurant, same hostess, and they say it's going to be an hour wait. And here's a little buzzer thing, and go shopping within a mile radius. We'll buzz you when we're back. We'll make sure to give you a great experience by the time you're seated. How do you feel now?
Kind of disappointed, but I understand. I get what we're. If I want to eat there, I understand. This is where we're at.
It's certainly a different feeling than the first scenario, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what the point here is that the 1 hour wasn't the issue. It was an hour either way. It was the expectation of what's happening next is what was set, right? So if we're leading somebody and we say that, in our mind, there's an expectation for what that outcome or the role is supposed to produce. Let's say it's a salesperson or it doesn't really matter, right? There's an expectation for what we're going to get out of that person for the compensation that they're being paid for. And then a couple months goes by or X amount of timeline goes by and you are not receiving the results that you thought you would get, but the expectations weren't crystal clear to the other person, right? Now I'm frustrated because the results aren't there, but they may not even necessarily know they're doing anything wrong, that they're behind.
Yeah.
Right? So whose fault is that? Is that the employees or the business owners?
Yeah, that's on me. Yeah.
And then the other part too is we oftentimes don't check in enough on our people to make sure that they're actually doing okay. Do they need support or help? Most people, there was some study that was done. This could be totally butchered, so take this however you want to. But it was that most people need to be shown something 8 times before they actually get it.
Really?
8 times. So as leaders, we have a tendency, especially fast-paced entrepreneurs, we have a tendency to over-expect and under-train. Right? We over-expect and we
100%.
under-train. And then we get frustrated and we have someone that we want to fire, and now we're firing an employee that was excited about the opportunity that now has to go back in the labor market, and it's not their fault. Maybe we shouldn't have hired them in the first place because they're not good at the job, and that's our fault. Or maybe because we weren't clear about expectations, and that's our fault. If we're clear and we do great leadership and great management and we're holding them accountable and we're coaching and we're guiding and we're doing everything we can to help them grow and do well at the role, and they continue to struggle, well, now it's a business decision that we have to make a change. But the other scenarios, it's not the employee's fault, it's ours.
Yeah.
So going back to the original question of what makes a great leader and a great communicator, it's that. It's showing that you care, asking questions, being authentic as to who you are, setting proper expectations, and checking on your people and training consistently. To me, that's a huge part of it.
Yeah, I love every one of those aspects. I think are so important. And I feel like we could dive into each one of those, for another 25 minutes for each segment. I'm curious here because I know you do a lot of remote work. How often do you feel like you need to be checking in? Like, so say you've got a team in, Dallas, how often do you feel like you need to be checking in with the manager or checking in with the sales team? Like, how often do you think you need to be checking in with them?
Is that question because you're not sure of what the proper cadence should be in leading and guiding them? Or is it because you're not trusting they're doing the work?
I think it's more of we trust that they're doing the work. It's more of more of a check-in to say, hey, what do we got? I think it's more of a staying in connection with them. You know what I mean?
Got it. I'm glad we clarified that because that could be 2 different things. The first way I interpreted it was not trusting that they're doing the work. So that's again an importance of asking a question to get clarification on what is the actual question here, right? Yeah. So if we're talking strictly about just to your point, I think you used the word, staying in. I forgot what word you said, but staying in connection. Yeah. I would say I believe that the key people in the organization, which is really everybody, should have a weekly one-on-one, bi-weekly at worst. So I really believe in a weekly one-on-one. Doesn't have to always be the founder or the leader. I mean, I actually think you can't lead more than 7 or 8 people personally, and more than that starts to get a little challenging to do it well. But a weekly one-on-one is really important. But really, it's setting the precedent that it's okay to call me. We may be virtual, but the door's always open.
Absolutely, right?
If you need me, call me.
I'm curious. How come you feel like, you were pretty firm about that 7 to 8 people? That's all you feel. Feel like that someone can lead. What Why is that? Why do you feel like that? I'm just curious.
That's a good question. It's probably just more what I was taught. I think having 20 direct reports, 30 direct reports, that's just a lot of people. It's a lot of people to do your job and care and take the time. And that's just hard. If all you do is management and you don't have any other tasks outside of just checking on people and doing one-on-ones, then certainly you could do it. But if you also have your own job, your own expectations and duties for yourself, and leadership is a part of that, I think too many organizations, in my opinion, are flat. I coach one company right now. They have around 100 employees, and there's really about 2 leaders, and it's a mess. Right. So we have to develop who are the leaders of different departments and start and segment things out and having a little bit more of a hierarchy in the company, not in any kind of negative way, but actually it helps people when they know who they can go to talk to. So I've always personally thought, 7 to 8 is about the max. You could stretch it, but I don't believe anyone could do 20, 30 direct reports if they have other duties. What are you taking out of this, Pete? What are you taking out of this? I'm curious.
No, I feel like I'm taking. There's so many there's so many things. I can't wait to go back and re-listen to this and be writing a bunch of notes down, because I feel like what you're saying right now is something that you could go tomorrow and start doing things differently. One of the things I'm going to start doing is just slowing down. Just slowing down, especially or more of just matching the cadence of who I'm talking to, because each person. If you've got, 20, 30, 40, 50 people that you're talking with on a daily basis, whether it's clients, vendors, or, your team members, like salespeople, like each person communicates a little bit differently. So having to match that and asking, really good questions and clarifying questions, I think is just a game changer, going forward 100%.
It's absolutely a skill set. And one thing to think about too, and this can be a little bit of a throat punch comment, but it's true, is who's paying the bill for for us going too fast? Like, who's sacrificing because we're unwilling to slow down?
Yeah.
Right. And it goes both. I mean, I also believe that, how you show up here is how you show up everywhere. So if you go really fast with your employees and in your business, you probably also go that fast in your personal life. Right. So that same tendency will follow you everywhere. So the people paying the bill, it may not even be the employee, although I promise they are too. But who else in your personal life is getting the shrapnel because of your unwillingness to slow down? So I think it's really important that the slowing down part is something that we listen to if we need it, if it's applicable for us.
Yeah, and that sits differently, because I'm just thinking about even this week alone, like, you just have to go, you just end up going over it again with your team because you didn't slow down the first time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You need to make sure we're on the same page by the time I left.
Well, listen, I feel like this could go on for another 20 minutes, but I'm just, again, so grateful that we had the opportunity to talk and, just talk about a subject that both of us are super passionate about. And you're just light years ahead of where I am, and I can't wait to continue to learn from you. So this is awesome. So thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate it.
I learn from you every day, and you're a great friend, and I'm grateful for our friendship. And thank you for making the people around us look better at the very least. So I appreciate you.
All right, Herm. Cheers, man.
Good seeing you, buddy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That wraps up another episode of Thread Talks. To dive deeper into the stories and expertise shared today, make sure to check out the show notes for more about our distinguished guests and the exceptional craftsmanship at Adrian Jules Custom Clothier. Loved what you heard? Don't forget to hit 5 stars, leave us a review, and remember, dress to impress today. When you look great, you feel great.